Hello and welcome to PR Week. My name is Steve Barrett. I'm the Editor-in-Chief of PR Week. I'm delighted to be here with Robyn de Villiers, who's Chairman of Arcay Burson-Marsteller Africa. Robyn, welcome to PR Week. It's great to have you here.
Thank you very much.
And you are part of an operation that's been doing PR in Africa for 18 years, but so that has recently, at the end of last year, Burson took a controlling interest.
That's correct.
Africa is seen as the China of 30, where China was 30 years ago. It's the next frontier for PR. So tell us a little bit about the market and about your operations within it, because you are pretty much the largest operator across the whole continent, but you do that via your main agency within South Africa, but also affiliates throughout the rest of the country.
Yes, that's correct. We started working in Africa 18 years ago when a South African client of ours asked us, we launched satellite TV with them in South Africa, and then they asked us to do the launch in 5 countries in Africa. And it was a great opportunity because part of the brief was to help them find PR agencies in Africa. So I travelled around to the 5 countries interviewing PR agencies and obviously got to know quite a few of them. And then we worked out at that point in time that it was actually a good opportunity to be able to offer clients an opportunity to do their work across Africa. So over the years, we've grown from 5 affiliates originally to now 36 affiliates plus us in Johannesburg. So there are 37 of us. And together we work in 52 of the 55 countries on the continent. I think what we've learned over the years is that having local people on the ground is incredibly important in terms of delivering really good, top quality PR, because what works in one country doesn't necessarily work in another. Of course, there's similarities, but there are lots of differences as well. And I think to be able to be culturally correct from a protocol point of view and have to be able to offer market appropriate implementation, you need local people. Yeah. And that's what we've got, which is great.
Yeah, so there are other networks in the country like Hill & Knowlton, Ogilvy, Edelman has a presence, so does Weber, as you would expect, and Flashman. But you would call yourself the largest. How many people have you got then throughout the whole country, and how many have you got in South Africa itself?
In South Africa, we have 24 full-time people and another 6 or 8 who work on a project basis. So we're not the biggest in South Africa, but if you look at Africa, our network would by far would be the biggest in terms of geographic reach, and there are probably between 300 and 350 PR professionals working in our network.
Mm-hmm. And you were saying earlier that actually the largest agency is Magna, Carta, which is part of TBWA, which is an advertising agency.
Yeah, that's correct, in South Africa. It's a very, very good agency. It's been around for, I'd guess, about 18 to 20 years, and it's a very good agency.
So what's driving the growth in Africa? It's the next frontier, as we spoke earlier. Why is that? And also, who are the big clients that you're working with?
I think what's driving the growth and what's exciting from a client's perspective is that Africa has an enormous number of people. And over the past 10, 20 years, quietly, Africa's been improving in many ways. So there's increased political stability. In 1991, there were 8 democracies in Africa, and now there are 30. And things are improving all the time from a political stability point of view, and urbanization is growing at a rapid rate. And of course, as people become urbanized, they get into a better economic position, and there's more disposable income around. So in 2010, there were 857 million consumers in Africa, and I think most people who've got a consumer product to sell would like a market of that size.
Absolutely.
But it's a growing population as well, fast growing actually. So by 2050, that number should be 1.3 billion consumers, and I don't think anybody would want to turn a blind eye to an enormous market like that.
Yeah.
So that there's some examples of consumer products that have absolutely taken off in Africa. Mobile telephony would be one. So there'd be many places in Africa where people have never had access to fixed line phones, and so for them, their mobile phone is the first phone they've ever had.
Yeah, so it's kind of jumped the PC desktop and the landline revolution straight into mobile.
The statistic is that by 2014, there'll be 600 million cell phone users in Africa. And of course, they wouldn't all be using smartphones because some of them would be at lower income levels, so they would be using basic cell phones. But still, it means that communicating via SMS, for example, which is something that would never have happened in the past, is possible.
And McDonald's is one of your big clients, which you would expect a client like that to be absolutely attacking a market like that. But who are a couple of your other big clients?
So interestingly, McDonald's only operates in South Africa and Egypt at the moment.
Okay.
So Africa is still a whole market for them to look at. So there are plenty of growth opportunities for them in Africa. BHP Billiton is another client of ours, also in South Africa. Discovery Health, which is a South African group doing enormously powerful things from a healthcare sort of innovating in enormous amount in terms of healthcare and what services you can offer for healthcare insurance. In Africa, we've worked for a number of blue chip clients, a number of them obviously with Burson-Marsteller. So we do work with Shell, we do work with Accenture, we've worked for SAP, we work with HP. So a number of different clients over the 5 years of being part of the Burson-Marsteller network. We've developed relationships with very nice clients.
And I understand that you've had, Burson has had more inquiries about Africa in the last 12 months than they have in the last 20 years, which is a pretty incredible fact. It's got to be good news for you as well.
Absolutely, but I think, as there are economic problems in other parts of the world, people are looking for the next place where they can find growth. And China and India obviously are still areas where you can find growth, but so is Africa, and people are becoming more conscious of that.
And Africa's the next low-cost production area of the world as places like China become more expensive, and that will also fuel growth.
Yeah.
Okay, and finally, obviously the Soccer World Cup, or football as I call it, was 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. What sort of impact did that have on the region and as a whole? Because there was a spotlight of the whole world on the country.
Yeah. Well, from a South African point of view, it was enormously uplifting. From a national pride point of view, it was wonderful. And I think South Africans got into a fantastically festive spirit around the World Cup. And even things like the crime rate dropped at the time of the World Cup, and it stayed low.
That's great.
So I think there was a generally positive attitude that has stayed. And I was lucky enough to travel to 1 or 2 countries in Africa before the World Cup or around the time. And I was really pleased to see that, when South Africa won the World Cup, the government said this is Africa's World Cup. But, you can pay lip service to something like that. So it was really interesting to see and nice to see that countries like Zambia were doing the same sort of fan parks and celebratory things we were doing. They were doing it too. So I think Africa really took hold.
Yeah, and South Africa got behind the other Ghana when South Africa was knocked out, which was also good.
Which was fantastic.
Well, that sounds fantastic. Thank you for telling us all about it, and we really look forward to following the progress over the next few years. It sounds like a really exciting place to be doing PR.
Good, it is, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Robyn.
Great.